Before I started working out, I accidentally caught myself naked in the mirror from the backside, and I had mud flaps. My butt cheeks were mud flaps. You might as well have had those, silver naked woman, on the back of the trucks, and then Steve whipped me into shape, and now I have a slightly lifted older behind that's way better than mud flaps. Welcome to Give It a Go. I am Melina.
I'm Dave.
He is Dave. And we went ghost hunting with Tim Chaffin, who was in season 1 with us. And we had an amazing time, and we were joined by another couple that I work with. Well, I work with Brandy, and with her is her fiance, Michael. Welcome, everybody, and fellow ghost hunters.
Hey.
Girl, let me introduce to you. Down here, we've got Michael and Brandy, who joined us on this amazing journey. And we have Tim Chaffin with us this evening again. Welcome back, Tim. Let's start out with, what are we drinking tonight here at the bar? Brandy, what are you guys having?
I am having, I guess I'll call this a Ginny Watt, which is just gin and sparkling water.
Nice and low cal.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm having is a gin and juice. So it's just Roku gin, and I got grapefruit juice, and I have 1 pump of dragon fruit syrup, and I put a Luxardo cherry in there just to be fancy.
Dave, that sounds like your kind of beverage.
That, or I don't know, Snoop Dogg. Anyway,
it sounds sweet. Dave is a sweet drink fan.
All right. I'm having, actually, because of this COVID situation, I'm not doing alcohol tonight. Instead, I'm doing a tea with this like throat comfort stuff. So it's got honey in here. And I might be like munching vitamins or something as we go along. But other than that, it's actually pretty good. So
awesome.
It'll work. I mean, I guess I could throw some.
This is why I haven't gotten COVID yet, because I drink all the time, and COVID does not survive in a throat that is hammered with alcohol. It's a fact.
I am using the old tried and true method of Jack and Coke, just like last time. So you stick with what works.
Man, you guys are as creative as dryer lint. So I've got some Bailey's Light with the whipped Pinnacle vodka and some 2% milk. I know it sounds gross, but it's actually called a liquid ghost. So cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Right. Hey, that's pretty good. It almost kind of tastes coconutty. That's bizarre. All right, good ghost, good ghost. And speaking of good ghosts, that's what we visited, with some very polite, good ghosts. Tim, tell us where we went and how you found it.
So we went out to a family cemetery in Whitesburg, Georgia, which is, very near where I grew up, and had, I think ever since I was a small child, and my dad and I visited a really old, like 17 or 1800 graveyard, I had a fascination with it. And so that graveyard, I knew well, riding motorcycles as a kid and driving by it, and, being near it. And so I felt like maybe it'd be a little more friendly for this kind of adventure, which I am all for, the friendly ghost. And so that's where we decided to do this. And I think it was a good pick.
Indeed it was. And so why did you have an attraction to this location? What about it, and how did you keep coming back to it?
When I was in 5th or 6th grade, and really had gotten into motorcycle riding, and
don't get Dave started.
Yeah, I know that's a whole nother podcast, right?
Yep.
Well, so I would pass by this graveyard that was, for all intents and purposes, forgotten about. It had grass that was chest high. You couldn't really see a lot of the markers. It's kind of up on a hill, as you guys know, so you can pass by it pretty easy without even recognizing it's there.
Well, it was
especially
kind of
if
out in the woods.
It is. And so I remember one day realizing that those were people that had lives and had families and friends, and probably a lot of tears shed when they were buried, and how sad that was that they had been forgotten about to that point that it could come overrun. And so I remember I wasn't old enough to use like power stuff. So I got some of the old hand, like grass cutting and, tools, and I loaded them up and took them down there and cut all the grass around them. And I think even to this day, my dad, mom, they probably have no idea that went on, but I felt good about that because it was just as, a human. I think that we should show love to each other, take care of each other. And even though those guys have passed on, the fact that somebody may take a minute, even as a elementary or middle school kid, I knew that just taking a moment to show some respect and love was important. And so it wasn't just good for them. I think it was a good thing for me to experience that. And so after that, every time I drove by there, there was a sense of, it was just a positive vibe of that. And so I just always kind of kept an eye on it. It wasn't one of those things where I was like drawn to just walk and sit up there. It wasn't. I remember as a kid being pretty spooked up there by myself, cutting that grass back, but I felt like it needed to be done.
Yeah.
And so I know that's weird. There was nothing else profound in my entire childhood, but that kind of was. So.
No, that's really, really neat. So you came back with your wife and your sister-in-law numerous times,
Yep.
but how did that even get started? When did you start getting into ghost hunting?
I was still in the military, and I think, people will remember when ghost hunters, or I don't know, something like that.
Yeah.
And so they spent a lot of time debunking things as well as pointing out things that they weren't sure of. But I like them, especially earlier on in their seasons, where they weren't quick to jump to conclusions.
I loved how they would debunk stuff as pipe noise and stuff. That's why I liked them too.
Right. Yeah. And so I really like those. And then, that moved into, a lot of the other shows, and you just kind of watch them along the way. And over time got really interested in the, just the concept of it, not whether it's true or false or good or bad, but just something that you can take some time, do something unique, and evaluate for yourself if there's something else going on there, or if you are misinterpreting things.
Mhm.
So.
Yeah. So how did you, Michael and Brandy, how did you guys get into this?
You want to start here?
I don't know if I actually got into it. I think, I was always into supernatural things, even as a child. But I was very skeptical kind of growing up. Like, of course, when you're a child, you're afraid of monsters under your bed, things that are in the dark. I've heard things and I've seen things. My brother and mother have too. So I kind of think it's like a family thing at this point. But I think you're always kind of a little skeptical until something happens to you. So
For that, how about you, Mike?
Yeah, for me, I was skeptical as well because I was going to Savannah College of Art and Design. So I lived there for 4 years. And I was doing an art project for the Moon River Brewery.
I've been there, and I actually felt something there. It was the only place in Savannah that I actually had an experience, and it wasn't in the upper floors where they say it is. It happened downstairs in the bathroom.
Oh, wow. Yeah, my best friend worked there for a couple of years, and he has some crazy stories. He didn't believe in ghosts until he worked there as well. So the art project I was doing for that place is I got permission from the owner to go on the upper floors and just
Yeah.
take pictures because I was doing an art project where I was recreating the entire brewery in Unity or Unreal Engine. And
That's
I
cool.
actually went to the third floor, even though I wasn't supposed to. So third floor, fourth floor, had some holes in the floor. It had briefcases from the 1900s. It was crazy going up there.
Wow.
But I took about 104 pictures of that place. And in 4 of the pictures, I had this weird wispy smoke like, I don't know what it was in my pictures. And it never happened before. 4 pictures
No
I took.
kidding.
Wow.
Now I know a little bit of the history there because they were saying that, I mean, this building was built in the 1700s. It was one of their oldest structures. And as they were renovating and as the main floor is where the bar and the restaurant is. And then the next floor up is where they kind of keep storage. The third floor and the fourth floor, they've been trying to renovate for decades and they can't get it completed because there seems to be constant paranormal activity and it chases the workers off and they've never completed it. So when we did the tour, we went up to those floors. They wouldn't let us on the fourth, but they would let us on the third and took pictures and everything. Nothing. But when I went down to the bathroom and it's just a tiny bar down there that's not being utilized and a pool table in a room way too small to shoot pool. And then there's the ladies' room. And I went in there and I had the creepiest feeling. I just felt like I was being watched the whole time. It was really bizarre. And then that show that you're talking about, Tim, they did some footage there and actually filmed something go across the bar and down the side in one of their episodes. And that was the only place that they caught evidence too. And I saw that after we had been there. I was like, I knew it was down there.
Wow.
One of the first places we went, like actual locations outside of our town, was Moon River Brewery.
Oh gosh.
Dave, we
have to go now.
I know.
You guys met Leanda. You know that she was kind of out of character that night because we walked in and Moon River Brewery was packed with people. And so we're like, oh, well, we guess we're not going to go in here. And Leanda just walked up to the host there and said, we want to go downstairs. And he's like, well, come on, we're not really supposed to let anybody down here, but y'all can come down. So we came in, they let us go down. We couldn't go upstairs, but they did let us go downstairs. And I still have some really good audio from that. We had audio with the spirit box and audio without the spirit box, where it's just with your ear from down there that, people I think can decipher pretty clearly that it's not upstairs noise, that it's right there at the source. And so I'll send that over for you and Nick and, everybody to kind of listen to and see. And if you want to add it in here, you can.
That sounds amazing.
When y'all visited Moon River, was the downstairs ready for events? Because they have it ready for events now.
No, it was so clear. In fact, I'm going to say this so you guys know that I'm not going to try to find something. This is actually on my phone right now. Is when we went down the steps and went down there, it was clear except for they had some barrels, I guess had, alcohol in them. But aside from that, there was nothing. There were no chairs. There were no tables. It was cleaned up. As soon as we got there, my son said, what is this place? And you hear very clearly immediately after that, ghost bar, just like that. And you're like, man.
Wow.
So again, it's all about interpretation. Could somebody be talking about that or doing, sure, I guess there's a lot of different things, but it's too coincidental at that moment. And so I'll be sure to send that one over and you can add it in if you.
Oh, that would be very, very cool. Dave, have you ever been to anything like that? Or was this your first go?
I mean, this is my first go. I mean, we've had some just weirdness in my house. I'm pretty skeptical. So
yeah,
so I don't try to, infer anything from any of this. You know, like but you know, we've had some weird stuff, like, you know, just our daughter just standing there looking out the window one day, and
Yeah.
wife said, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" She goes, "Oh, it's your grandma." And I was like, "Oh, well," kind of creepy. And then we had family come stay with us, and my sister-in-law stepped out of the bathroom and just kind of white as a ghost, and she's like, "Is your house haunted?" And I'm like, "What? Why?" She's like, I felt like someone was touching me while I was in the bathroom there. I'm like, ooh.
Dude,
creepy.
what is it
So,
with ghosts in girls' bathrooms? That's kind of creepy.
we joke. There were some times where I felt like I was, you know, working, and I was looking kind of at, we had sort of a set of glass doors that went out to a terrace that had another panes of glass. And so, like, in between, you know, you had that infinite reflection thing happening that you'd sort of see through. And there was like one night I'm sitting there just eating, and I just kind of look up, and there's like something passing by. I'm like, ooh, what's that?
Ooh,
So I don't know.
yeah.
I don't, you know, it's like, I don't know. It's like, I don't know what that is. So it might be in my head. I don't know. But
And I'm a
the
skeptic as well.
but the
So
night that we went out, I will confess there was some very odd stuff going on. So I
quite a bit, in fact.
yeah.
Michelle was quite nervous.
Oh, yeah.
So basically, we went out there after it turned dark. Tim was kind enough to bring some chairs and a propane heater because it was like 40 something degrees while we were there. And we just walked around basically with our cell phones like you do. And then Michael and Tim and Brandy had some equipment that they brought with us. Mike, why don't you describe what you were using that night?
So the main thing I was using is this spirit box, and basically what it does is it just scrubs through all the radio stations. I said to
Is it AM
radio.
only? Oh, okay.
I think you could do both, but I set it to AM because we weren't getting any voices coming in on AM. I tested it beforehand, just static on every channel to make sure it was the least amount of interference as possible, and just had that running, scrubbing through the channels. And you get more stuff with the spirit box than anything else, I think.
We certainly did, and I can add to that you can set the timing as to how quickly it goes through the channels. And if you guys in the audience, you know, ever watch this ghost shows, it's that it makes that sound. It's like, you know, and then that's it going through the stations. So yes, if it picks up a signal, you might hear that, you know, quick, but it's going to move very quickly. But if you get a word that is more than one syllable or two syllables, or, you know, or a sentence, then there's no way you're picking up a voice from that particular radio station, because now you've moved on like 7 stations. So how is it, do they say that spirits can communicate through this? How does that even work?
So are you guys familiar with the stone tape theory? Have you heard about it, Tim?
Nope.
Basically, it's a theory that's been made for like half a century now, where some people theorize that energy can be put into inanimate objects like stone or like a doll or something like that, much like how the sun can give off radiation in the form of gamma rays, high frequency energy. And likewise, cold objects, kind of like stone or something inanimate that's cold, will give off low frequency radiation like radio waves. And the theory is that whenever a traumatic event or something that has a lot of energy around it happens, there's an object in that area that can pick up and have like a recording of that energy. So some people theorize when you're running that spirit box, it'll pick up on any kind of radio frequencies that are attached to objects in the area. So for instance, you are around a tombstone, it might pick up something that someone said a century ago. So for instance, in the in our investigation, we had one instance where someone clearly says the flu, and that could be something that was just said a century ago. And there was some really cool stuff that we picked up, I think.
Indeed. So what else did you use besides the spirit box?
I used just a millimeter here. So it's kind of like if a ghost would get very close to it, you could take it out of the box. But if a ghost gets close to it, it kind of senses movement. And
it's not just ghosts. I mean, that's the one with the antenna. So if you touch it, it starts blinking and bleeping.
You turn it on and you could just interfere with it and it'll make a sound. And we didn't really get much activity with the millimeter, the one I was using anyways. There was only one time during the entire investigation where something weird happened when I had the millimeter out. It made a weird sound just as an EVP came through, so I thought that was really cool.
That's interesting.
That's an interesting anomaly, I would say.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's basically how it works. It's supposed to light up when something comes close.
So Tim, you had the spirit box as well, but then you also had the EVP recorder and the EMF.
Yeah, so this is it's an EMF detector. This is just a cheap one. It's one of the first things that Leanda had got me when she realized that there was no bringing me back from the interest here. So we didn't have a lot of action with this too. I think we had one moment when we were all sitting around,
a long moment
where it went off, but aside, and it was just sitting there like nobody was. We had kind of forgotten.
And that was interesting because that was the time where I was running the spirit box and it was making some really weird noises. Remember how it's like kind of like sci-fi R2D2? It was making that weird sound and then I passed the spirit box to Tim and then it just stopped making that weird noise and then his EMF thing started acting weird after that. And I thought that was really coincidental that all that weird stuff started happening in that specific sequence. It's very interesting.
Yeah,
so basically the EMF, it, like you said, it picks up the electromagnetic frequency. And so explain how they think, how is that the manifestation of past energies, or is there a better way of describing it?
I just assume it's true because everybody uses it. I have no idea. No, I think, that they believe that there's some electromagnetic field that is present for any spirit that's there. And so is that true or not? I don't know, but I've used this enough times and it's gone off so few times, but normally when it does go off, there's something else that couples it, at the time. So
like what Michael's equipment.
Yeah, I can't, none of this can you say, or can I say 100% that's what that is. I mean, there are loads of reasons why you could have, even walking through your house, you have the all of your outlets and, those things give off those EMF readings. So there are other things that do present those readings if you get close to them. But normally if you're sitting down dirt roads in the middle of the woods with, nothing around, there's nothing that should make it go off. So that does give a lot more credit to
right. And not even cell phones make it go off. And in that particular situation, we were sitting around the heater and we were going around the circle asking the spirits questions. And I think we had just finished because we were trying to get EVPs from that. And I don't know if anybody did capture anything on that.
Oh yeah, there's a lot.
Really, on the EVP from that? Oh, goody. Okay, I can't wait to hear about this. We'll get to that then. But it was like, that was the only time Tim was talking and the EMF detector was laying on the ground next to his chair. And it just starts flashing. And I'm interrupting Tim going, Tim, why is it? Why? why is it flashing? Tim, why is it flashing? And then Michelle, Dave's girlfriend, is there going, why is it flashing? Why is it flashing? And it kept going. And I think somebody said, okay, can you step away from it now? And it stopped.
One of the interesting things to point out with that is that we were out there for, I didn't time it, but 2 or 3 hours, I would imagine.
Yeah.
And that thing was on the whole time. And that was the only time that it flashed or made any noise.
Yeah.
Was
So
when
it
they
couldn't
also
have been
had-
random stuff. I mean, because that was just that one time.
Yeah,
Mhm.
It was. And, you know, like Michael said, it was going off at the same time that some other things were going on. And so that was interesting. And then the other really important piece of equipment that Michael and I both took was just a digital recorder. You know, I found this out the hard way, and it was actually at Moon River Brewery, where I was using my phone to do some recordings. But the way that recordings are done on your phone, I don't know all the technical terms, but it kind of splices in bits of data. So you can miss some things or misinterpret some things. It's not clear. Where with the digital voice recorders, you can take those in. There's software that can slow them down, speed them up, isolate certain things. And Michael has done a tremendous job of putting a lot of that together and going through it. But you know that if anybody is going to try this, it's worth a few dollars for a digital recorder versus trying to do it on your phone, because the sound is a lot clearer. You can really isolate it out. So that was an important piece.
And it'll pick up things that we don't hear audibly.
Correct.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what makes it really cool, because it will pick up what we do hear audibly as well as what you don't hear, like what Michael was just saying. And when I was asking if he got any EVPs from that moment where we were asking questions, none of us heard any responses. But you're saying that it did come through on the EVP recorder.
Did anybody say y'all heard from Mark?
Yeah.
Was anybody talking about Mark there? Because at one point in that, I was like, is that an EVP or is somebody talking about Mark? Because it was a very clear question.
Wow.
No
I
one
heard
answered
that.
it.
I heard that, and I listened to the audio before and after it, and there was nobody talking about that. And it came through, I think that came through the spirit box, but I didn't know it until I was listening to that recording that you had sent. And then, you know, I saw where you highlighted it. So I kind of went back and listened to that area around it, and it was just kind of out of nowhere.
Yeah, no one acknowledged it. No one answered the question. So I
Right.
thought that was a really cool one as well.
So when we got there, we drive up. I mean, it was like miles down a dirt road. There's no way anyone would ever find this. I'm surprised the ghosts found their way back.
Right.
And we were seeing tombstones that were from early 1800s. And then there were the little ones that just looked like stones, like rocks covered in moss that were from the late 1700s.
Yeah,
They sort of
probably
eroded.
early
Yeah.
1800s.
I don't know what was in the little private. There was the other little plot that you guys stood around at one point.
Those
where you guys
were
were-
children as well.
Wow. Okay.
And then that's where we caught that spirit box where Tim, this was one of the most fascinating ones I thought, was it was just like 4 of them in a row, you know, in its own little square. And Tim had his spirit box sitting on top of one of the stones. And he asked, are you always here or do you come and go? And I have to tell you, Tim, this was very monumental for me because you explained it so perfectly, as you always do. And it changed my thought pattern about this whole, concept. But Tim asked, are you always here or do you come and go? And it was probably like 3 seconds later, you hear a child's voice, clear as day, say, come and go. And we were like, what the fuck? I remember saying to you, Tim, that, oh, that's sad because, I mean, I never believed in children ghosts. You can have whatever religion you have, but I have mine, and mine is God would never leave a child behind. God's going to take that child to heaven. And so I always thought if you heard a child's voice, that could be a demon. That could be something mimicking what that is for trickery. And so that always tripped me out. But when it said come and go, then you have to start questioning your belief system a little bit. But Tim, you were explaining is like, what if it's, dimensional? I mean, we've got scientists for hundreds of years talking about wormholes and different dimensions in heaven. You can't point to it. Maybe it is a different dimension, and maybe they can come back and forth. That was something I had never considered before, which was interesting. So it kind of opened my eyes to it, made me think, well, maybe this is possible.
Or like the others, maybe we're the ghosts.
I mean, you never know.
That is something that is a cool possibility, is that, we're just simply speaking in there's some physical attribute of that area that allows communication to kind of break through into some other type of thing. I mean, it's like it's
speculation.
It's fun to speculate. It's really fun to kind of try to open your mind to the possibility of whatever it could possibly be.
We all heard it clear as day, and our audience will too. Tim, what were you saying?
It was weird.
No, I was just going to say, I think that one of the interesting things about that moment that's hard to display, or put out there for people to really know without boring them in the process, is that if you go back and listen to the audio for that time period, we were actually getting a little frustrated, but what was coming through. If you go back and listen to that moment, that spirit box had nothing. It was just static. And we had asked lots of questions. And there was a period of time where we had heard some stuff, but then we went a long period of time without anything. And that's what made me think to ask the question of, well, maybe they're just not here all the time. So I asked, are you here all the time, or do you come and go? And then you heard the response right on the back end of having a long period of time with not so much as a blip coming through. So it's hard to describe that for people unless they're there.
Right.
But when you are there and you've heard that much static and you've stood around for 5 or 10 minutes asking questions, this thing is rotated through. No, the spirit box is rotated through several times. And then all of a sudden you ask that question and get that direct response. It does, as Dave said, whether you believe it or not, or somewhere in the middle, it does cause you to pause and think, well, what if? That was a pretty crazy moment, I think, for everyone.
I used to work in a haunted office building, and I worked there for over 2 years. And for the first year, nothing happened. But in the last year that I worked there, it was just me and another girl. We were there by ourselves a lot, whereas usually it would be like, 8, 9, 10 people in the building with us. But when it was just her and I in there, stuff would happen. And then she
would it happen more in the bathroom? Just asking.
No. No. There was a room in particular that we were absolutely convinced that it was coming from, and it was the back office. Sometimes the exit door by that back office would go off and it's locked, but it would trigger the exit alarm. And then one day we heard a crash and we went back there, and this huge wooden filing cabinet had toppled over. Now that could be explained, but that was a very, very heavy cabinet to have tipped over.
Yeah.
And then she ended up losing her job, and I was there by myself some days. And then I was also there by myself after work hours, and I would lock myself in. Now, the thing that I saw in that office, I saw a shadow figure, and it streamed by my office. It blurred out the light that was coming through the door. And then a split second later, it ran into the front door and made the bells on the door jingle. And I got up and I went outside.
Wow, that is insane. So now that you've brought up shadow figure, from a previous trip to this same graveyard, Tim took a photo of what looked like a Native American behind the trees. How did that come about? Tell us about that photo a little bit.
Yeah, that was a trip that Leanda and her sister and I made. It was one random evening, and we just decided to go share in this experience for a little bit together and see what happened. And we must have taken 150 pictures out there. And that night, I was going through them, and there was something just odd about this one picture. And I just kept coming back to it. I didn't really see it right off, other than I just knew something was odd about it. And then when it finally occurred to me to send it to my computer where I could blow it up and look at it, I noticed off in the wood line when I could blow it up that it is what appeared to be pretty well-defined Native American on the edge of that cemetery. And he wasn't looking towards you. He was looking kind of up and off in the distance, but you can see the profile of it. When you blow it up and look at it, you can see the eyebrow, the nose, the lips. Your mind automatically applies facial features to, designs or things that you
Tries to make sense of things.
But there was a lot about this picture it was a lot more clear to me than a lot of pictures that these ghost shows put on as being evidence that they found. In the sunlight, the way the bark and everything looked from a distance looked like the figure of a woman standing there, but you debunk it very quickly because you go back and check.
Right.
Go back and do. So my point is that we spent a lot of time in both of those other cemeteries, did not get a single blip on the spirit box. We didn't get any EVPs aside from that picture for a moment that I thought maybe something. There was nothing. And so, I think that's a good call. If you guys want to go back out there at some point, and we can go and spend some time at the other graveyard there and just see if it's the same type of experience, that would be interesting.
I wonder if we could get anything at Kennesaw Mountain.
I'm sure.
Because that was a big battlefield. But I want to go back to your Native American for a second, because there was something very interesting because it had a headdress, but it was wearing something that you wouldn't expect a Native American to wear.
Yeah. So
that's what made that special.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's an interesting thing. And this comes down to, I think it's going to be, people's personal interpretation of things. But for me, when I came in here, it was like, Leanda still gives me a hard time about it. It was like 2:00 in the morning. I'd finally just about gone to sleep, and I sat straight up in the bed because it finally dawned on me to send it to my computer and look at it there. So I ran in there and pulled it up, and then I thought, well, that's weird, because you can see the face and you can see the headdress. It's a profile of the face and the headdress, but then you can see like a suit. You don't see what you would expect to see. You see more of a European style suit or uniform. And that didn't make sense to me. So I started Googling, and I do remember checking the time, and it was 2:00 in the morning. And I started Googling, Native Americans in suits,
Random.
authentic pictures from the 1800s, Native Americans in suits. And through that, I came upon this really interesting read about the Creek Indian tribe that had started putting together uniforms during the Civil War for the Southern military members. That the Creek Indians had started doing that. Again, I'm not a historian in this, it's just what I read. So, but it was interesting that that's what they were doing. And in starting to create that clothing, they started wearing it themselves. And so
That's crazy.
that was something I never knew had happened. So then I looked up when this band of Creek Indian, where they were located, and it was like their main location happened to be like the Six Flags, Georgia area, which is about 30 minutes away. Whether that picture is authentically a, Native American or just my mind playing tricks on me, it was a very interesting place that I landed with that.
Right. And Brandy and Michael, you guys, and then Tim, you actually brought this up earlier as well, because when we were doing the session by the little baby graves, which just behind that is where you got that photo. and Michael got was it an EVP or was it Spirit Box, where it was something that was nonsensical, but it was in that area, and it kind of like a boop bop beep or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And Tim was like, it sounded nonsensical to us, but what if, because it was in that area, what if it was Native American language and we didn't make sense of it?
So about that voice that said those exact words was a female voice that appeared many times during the course of our questioning. And I get the feeling that if this was a spirit, it was one that doesn't speak English.
There was some EVPs that also came through where it was like, there was an interesting name that was said, Ava Tabaya.
This was after I had
Look
taken
that
a
up.
photo, and we were asking who was that ghost that I took a picture of. And that same woman said, Ava Tabaya. And I think that was the name of this ghost. So I was looking up the name Ava, the name Tabaya, and Tabaya is a name. So maybe some tombstone is named that.
Let's try this. What color jacket is she wearing?
Black.
Is that what it said?
Yeah, I heard that.
What color is it?
Black.
Oh man,
Well, it's gray and black,
Yeah.
but yeah.
that's pretty cool. What color jacket is he wearing? Colors are cool. It's okay to say. What color is it?
Brown.
Brown.
That was a whisper.
That's
Nice,
amazing.
Thank you.
You're awesome.
Thank you.
Are you always here or do you come and go? Come and go. Possible. I don't know how this happens, but I think if you get near one of these devices with the green light, it will make it light up differently. And it's just another way that we can communicate with you. Are you able to get in front of one of those other green lights, or do you don't?
Wow. That was loud.
Okay. Do you know, is there anyone else here, or is it just Jones and Cook? It's not relevant? Do you know how many of us are here trying to talk to you? Be careful, you can't count my wife. She's not trying to talk to you. It's the rest of us.
7.
7, which with Leander would be 8. That was pretty good. Can you tell us again? We thought, I know I asked you to do me a favor and tell us a number, and it sounded like you said 7. Did we hear that right? Absolutely.
Absolutely.